The case of poor young Celeste continues. With so much crazy information, and many different aspects involved in her early 2024 disappearance, that ultimately led to her much too early death, in the hands of the young adult singer, David. The landlord of the home in California that David was living in, has hired his own private investigator, since LAPD, as usual, seem to be acting very sketchy, as they always do, in cases of celebrity misconduct. So the owner of David's rental home has hired Steve Fisher. Some of you may remember him from a few years ago during the Kylie Rodney case, where he was hired to be the private investigator for her family after her mysterious death. He has come across some very interesting leads, and of course, can't share too much with us, but so far, we've already learned a lot more from him than LAPD in the last 2 months, considering that they really haven't been saying anything, unless they use their paid propaganda mouthpiece, TMZ. But let's see what Steve has to say in regards to what he found when it comes to who the last person was to possibly drive and park David's Tesla on the street over from his house the day before he went on tour.
How certain are you that this video of the car driving away from David's mansion is the last time it drove and ended up at the spot where it was abandoned, likely with that body inside?
I'm certain. Listen, I can't say 100% because there's not a camera trained on that Tesla once it's parked. Continuously that I've seen. I mean, there likely is a camera, but I've seen the car driven to that spot, and with the dates, with the date that it was, they left town right after that. I'm certain that is the last time the car was driven. It was put there with her, in the front trunk.
And there's one weird detail about what you could, well, there's a lot of weird details, and I'm going to get to what you saw through the driver's side window in a second, but there was an air freshener that was found in the car at this point that we see on our screen where it was abandoned. Was that air freshener also hanging from the rearview mirror when it drove off from David's house?
It wasn't, but his window was half to 3/4 of the way down, which is odd because it was a very short drive. And also at that on that day, this is the very end of July 29th, it was like 78 degrees at the time in the morning, or 77 degrees. And if it was on the street where the house is, so it's shaded by the house. So, if you're going to, I don't know why the window would be rolled down unless there's something, offensive there. And then all of a sudden, one of the first things I picked up on when the news first broke about the her being found in there, they were towing the car away from the impound lot to LAPD, was why on a $104,000 car is there a Christmas tree air freshener hanging from the, from the mirror? It seemed kind of odd to me, but I guess maybe they thought that would help, mask it for when they had to move the car again.
If there was that smell at that time, because again, we have no idea when Celeste started decomposing in that trunk. We don't know if she'd been decomposing in the trunk for a long time before it ended up being, the car ended up being abandoned. But talk to me about the date of this video, July 29th, and talk to me about what you saw. What did you see in terms of the identity of the person driving through that open window?
So it's very clearly that Tesla one, because the Tesla has that tape on the rear spoiler for whatever reason. I don't know why it's there. And also, it was just like it is in that picture. It was that dirty, except you could tell that they had run the windshield wiper like once to clear the dirt away so they could see. And it comes very close to the camera, although there is some motion blur, but you can see the person and you can see what they're wearing, something pretty distinctive. And there's photos that I have from 12 hours earlier, a person at the house wearing the same thing.
And I know that the viewers right now are screaming at the TV set saying, Ashley, ask him who it was.
I mean, I honestly wish I could tell you. I don't want to, I don't want to interfere with LAPD on that. And I think that's coming because we know a crime was committed 100%. Somebody concealed her body, and hey, maybe the reason I don't want to say the person's name is because maybe this person was just someone that was asked to move the car, and didn't know. I find that very hard to believe, and I doubt that's the case. But just in case, I'd rather LAPD make that announcement.
Well, and it's important for us to tell viewers as well that you turned all this material over to them. You're the one who found it. You're the one who took it to them. You're the one who said, and I connected it to the photos from just 12 hours earlier, and here's the clothing. It looks like this could be an ID. July 29th, important because that was the last day that David was in Los Angeles, right? Before he went off on his tour. So he was there in Los Angeles on that day that drive happened.
Yeah, I've seen on one of his public social medias, he had put a video out where it was the first day on their new tour bus because they were going to San Francisco for the first night of the concert series. And they did a video from inside the tour bus. So I believe hours after that car was moved, they actually got on the tour bus and headed to San Fran. I'll tell you that there have been things that we've learned that we've turned right over to LAPD, but we think there's significant, things that could help.
Do you mean that there might be evidence that a crime was committed at that house?
Not so much a crime, no. I'll just be honest with you. We don't have any evidence that anything happened to Celeste at that house, but there is definitely evidence that we've collected that helps the timeline. We now have a much better understanding of when that Tesla arrived at that final parking spot. I'll tell you, I do have surveillance from different houses in the neighborhood showing Tesla being moved. So things like that, and I'm not even saying that LAPD didn't have that. I'm sure they did, but we wanted to make sure, and we did some work on the up-resing the footage to find out who was driving the vehicle.
Do you know who was driving that car, that Tesla? You don't have to tell me, but do you know the identity?
Yeah, as far as going to the final, what we believe is the final parking spot where it was towed from, yes.
And that information has been communicated to law enforcement.
So it's been given to law enforcement. They're not going to tell us if they're confirming if that's a person or not. Robbery, homicide, the way they work is we'll take your information. We're not going to speak on it, so I don't know. But listen, it's very clear that neighborhood is filled with surveillance cameras, and the timelines, once we learn those dates and we can see other things that were happening that were even public on Instagram and whatnot or going on in those people's lives, it makes a lot of sense.
So let me ask you this. If you see when the car was parked there, have you seen anything to indicate that Celeste's body was transferred into that car after the car was parked there? Or in other words, do you believe that her body was in that car the minute it was parked in the location it was ultimately towed from?
So I'll say I have no evidence of a body being transferred before or after. There's no evidence of that at all. But I will say when it was moved to that position, it was already like that. So that car had not been used in a very long time. It was super dirty, caked on dirt. I'll tell you, this was in late July. So it's bizarre because we also got media that the car was used a lot. David even spoke about it in Instagram videos. He took it to a detail shop and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, the very beginning of the year, that car, something happens, and the car's doesn't show up anymore. It's not used. It seems to disappear. And then that red Tesla learned, which we didn't know until the search warrant was served, that there's a red Tesla in the garage, which I can tell you was at least on February 1st.
Yeah, let me just narrow down here. Do you have the precise date of when that car, the one with the Tesla, with Celeste's body inside, when it was left there? Do you know the specific date of when it was left in the Hollywood Hills?
I believe so. I believe it, late July. Very late July.
So one thing that we've heard, and this is something we've talked about, is the LAPD has seized footage from the rental property, multiple security cameras around the property. There are even reports of a smashed Ring camera on the ground. Yeah. And according to TMZ, police seized all the footage from multiple security cameras at the house last month when they executed the search warrant. TMZ described that footage as a, quote, potential gold mine for investigators. And the question becomes, did you see anyone coming into or leaving that property after the Tesla was there? So after the Tesla with Celeste's body inside is there, can you tell us you saw people coming in and out of that property before the search warrant?
No, not from the time that the Tesla was left. So from the time the Tesla was left there, he literally immediately started the tour. There was a tour bus that was leased, and I'll tell you that Tesla was moved and literally a bus departed for tour. The security system, the house has got a very sophisticated security system, not just with cameras, but with sensors and all types of things. It all records to a DVR. And for privacy reasons, the owner, when he leased the house, said, this is the system that's in the house, and you can use whatever functions you want on it. That's not something that then the owner could access. So we don't know if the cameras were enabled or not enabled, but if they were, it wouldn't just be cameras. It would be, we'd know anytime anybody came and went from the house, anytime anybody opened a window, everything, if they kept it like it was. But we don't know. LAPD came in and took that whole DVR. They took the entire system, which you would expect. And I've talked to the security company that installed the system, and they've told me, how it was set up. We think it was probably running because there's limited alerts that the security guy can see, which is stuff like if there's a major failure. And there was a low power failure warning that triggered right when they were executing the search warrant. And I think that's when they unplugged the system. So there's reason to believe that the system was running. Whether the cameras were covered or not, I don't know. I can tell you that some of the smoke sensors in the house were covered, and that's probably because maybe I don't know what they were doing in the house. So the cameras might have been covered as well. They did ask to terminate the lease. And I believe the other manager that technically was the owner of the red Tesla, I think was in touch with him because they needed access to the house to get that vehicle and stuff out. Because that's another thing that they could be key in this, is that there's only one key to that house, and who had that and who had access to it and who was in it. Because we also have evidence that while David was on tour at the time between the Tesla being found and the search warrant being served, David was on tour, but somebody was in that house. And there was actually a report made, not with police, but that homeowner association has a robust private security company. And we've gotten videos from them and reports. And so who had that key is probably the same person that, had access to the Tesla.
Do you know who that person is? And do you believe that is the person that moved the Tesla?
So I definitely know who moved that Tesla on that late July before they went on tour. I can't say who the person, and I can't say I don't know who exactly was in that house, because it's just a report, but there's video, but you can't make a person out. But somebody was in the house, and being that there's only one key, it's like, okay, who had access at that time? So is it the same person that moved the Tesla? Was the last part of the plan about to go in motion as far as getting rid of her body? I don't know. I have photos and videos, and we've gotten a lot of photos and videos from inside the home itself. So you can put people at certain dates and times at the house, and there's a lot of them. It's in the thousands.
Do you know if Celeste was ever at that property?
So, what we recovered, we don't have any of her at that property. We have pictures of her and that were taken by David, we assume, because it's not on a camera phone, but these photos are on a regular camera at different locations. And it really makes me think that it's likely she had another place she was staying. I can tell you that there was a lot of time spent towards downtown LA. And I'll say the last photo that we have of Celeste is January 2nd, 2025.
Okay, now that's significant, because we were wondering when, she was last seen alive. There was that surveillance footage of her seemingly running away from her neighborhood.
And that was September of 24, I believe. So we didn't have anything. We were like, where was this girl in 2025? But we do have a photo of her on July 2nd, early in the morning, July 2nd, 2025. Has
anyone, and just to be clear, you don't know more information about when she died, right?
No, I don't have any information of how she died, when exactly she died. Investigations are always moving. And right now, I tend to believe it happened a while ago, a long time ago. And I think January, February, things change. I mean, you can see it in the photos and everything. One thing we definitely learned from we have a lot of imagery that was not from his Discord. There's a lot out there anyways, but we have some that wasn't out there. So we really have a good idea of who his core group of people were that were around a lot, and they were at that house a lot. And I think it would be hard for some of those people not to know something was up. There was a shift in behavior as far as the Tesla wasn't being used anymore. I just think that they were a tight enough group that at least one or two of them probably knew. I would think those people would be cooperating with LAPD right away if they didn't have a hand in anything. Everybody knows first one there probably gets a deal. I don't know if that's the case or not, though. It's been incredibly quiet. His friends have not made a statement online. These people that live online.
Right.
He hasn't made any statements online. So I don't know if he's provided them counsel as well, possibly. And everybody's just doing a very good job of being quiet, or what's going on. I would think there'd be some cooperation there. But I also think that that's probably ended once Blair Burke gets involved. You got to think that, if they're questioning, they're Mirandizing them. And I got to think that they're probably not letting them speak too much or too openly if they have counsel, if somebody has, a big exposure here.
Based off of the info that was given, who do you think was the last person to drive and park the Tesla? David, or David's manager Josh, Neo, or another member of David's team? Let me know what you think in the comments.